The Dead Space remake is an excellent personal example of this. I was a huge fan of the 2008 original back in the day. It was one of the few true examples of survival horror in the 7th generation. Resident Evil had gone full-blown action, abandoning the genre. And arguably, Dead Space was the only AAA series keeping its presence known at the time. But that didn't last very long, as the next two titles would take a more action-y turn, the third one appealing to so many gaming trends of the time that the franchise would lose its identity entirely and sour most fans, effectively killing the franchise. But in 2023, Dead Space returned in the form of a remake, developed by Motive Studios. The goal was simple: recreate the horror classic and make some small changes to the narrative and gameplay to improve the quality of life, and have the original story fit into the overall series narrative a bit more naturally. The second and third game introduced a fanatic religious cult that was absent in the first. This cult was added in the remake. Alongside that, some tedious and frustrating minigames had been heavily altered into making them fit more into the base gameplay loop, and the USG Ishimura, the game's setting, was fully connected so that players wouldn't be interrupted by loading screens. However, the most important aspect of this remake is something that is so understated that most gamers probably wouldn't even notice it: the Intensity Director. This is a system where, behind the scenes, an artificial director could play one of over 1,200 unique events whenever you enter a room. This could range from the lights flickering and hearing noises in the walls to full-on new enemies popping out of vents and appearing where they wouldn't before. This is important because arguably the most vital part of any horror video game is its atmosphere. However, a common problem faced in the genre is that whenever the player backtracks through an area they've already cleared out, it can feel more like speedrunning through an empty haunted house instead of cautiously navigating the infested halls of a space station run amok with necromorphs. The Intensity Director fixes this problem entirely, restoring the game's tension in its slower parts and allowing moments such as backtracking, exploring, and scavenging to actually feel like you could still be in danger at any point in the game. There are many examples of games in the survival horror genre of this being a real problem. You know that real annoying part of The Last of Us where you clear out an enemy arena and the characters all take the same exasperated sigh, stand up, and say,
"That was too damn close."
And then you spend just as much time as it took to clear out the arena combing back over it, pressed up against the walls like a mime doing its trapped in the box routine, mashing triangles so you can pick up nondescript pieces of cloth and screws so that you can do it all over again? Yeah, the Intensity Director makes that a bit more fun. Unfortunately, I can only hope this system is adopted into other games and franchises because EA decided that over 2 million sales from one of their lesser-known studios in one of the most competitive years of all time wasn't enough, and instead is turning Motive into a Battlefield support studio because that's clearly the game franchise that is on a hot streak and requires more support in 2025.